Hours crawled by. Ji-won drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time he woke, the pain was still there, sharp and constant. The medical bed's displays showed numbers that kept getting worse. Blood pressure down, heart working too hard, body temperature dropping. Dae-hyun never left his side. His friend sat in the only chair, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Every few minutes he would check the monitors, then check Ji-won's face, looking for signs that things were getting worse. "Tell me about Aurora Point," Ji-won said. His voice came out rough and weak. Dae-hyun brightened a little. "It's amazing. They have technology from 20 different species. They've treated injuries that would kill anyone else. They saved a Karathi who got caught in an engine explosion. They brought him back from the edge." "How many humans have they treated?" Ji-won asked. Dae-hyun hesitated. "I don't know. But they're professionals. They know what they're doing." Ji-won nodded slowly. He wanted to believe that. He wanted to trust that alien medicine could save him. But doubt gnawed at him. Humans were new to space, only 80 years since first contact. Most aliens had never even seen a human up close. Captain Minji entered the medical bay with a tablet. "Aurora Point wants updated scans. They're preparing their surgical theater." The medical bed ran another scan. The sensors moved over Ji-won's body, mapping the damage inside. The results appeared on the screen. Minji transmitted them immediately. They waited for a response. When it came, the voice belonged to someone new. The universal translator made it sound flat and mechanical, but Ji-won could still hear uncertainty underneath. "This is Dr. Vecklith, Chief Medical Officer of Aurora Point. We have reviewed your scans. The injuries are severe. Human physiology is complex. We have limited experience with your species." Minji's jaw tightened. "Can you treat him or not?" "We will attempt treatment. However, I must inform you that the outcome is uncertain. Please maintain current stabilization procedures and proceed to our station with all speed." The connection ended. Silence filled the medical bay. "They'll figure it out," Dae-hyun said. "They have to." But Ji-won heard what the alien doctor hadn't said. They weren't sure they could save him. They would try, but they didn't have guarantees. His life depended on doctors who had never treated someone like him before. He accessed his data chip again. The files were all there, stored in his brain's implant. Medical protocols from his military service. He'd been trained to treat combat injuries in the field, with limited supplies under the worst conditions. Could those old skills help him now? Ji-won pulled up files on abdominal trauma, ruptured organs, internal bleeding, field surgery techniques. He read through them slowly, his mind working through the pain. The procedures were brutal, designed for desperate situations when proper medical care wasn't available. "What are you doing?" Dae-hyun asked, noticing Ji-won's eyes moving as he read the files in his mind. "Research," Ji-won said. "Research for what?" Ji-won didn't answer. He was too busy thinking. The constellation had tools. Not medical tools, but engineering equipment. Cutting torches, bonding agents, and sealants. Could those be adapted for surgery? It seemed crazy, but crazy might be better than dead. Another hour passed. Then 2. The ship continued its race through space. Ji-won's condition continued to worsen. The synthetic blood kept his pressure from dropping too low, but it was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. The hole kept getting bigger. A new voice came over the communication system, softer than Dr. Vecklith's, with more emotion breaking through the translator's flatness. "Constellation, this is Healer Oma. I wanted to ask about your patient's condition." Minji glanced at Ji-won. He nodded slightly. "He's conscious. You can speak to him directly." "Hello, Ji-won," the alien healer said. "I am studying human physiology to prepare for your arrival. Can you tell me about your pain level?" "Human pain tolerance is not well documented in our medical database." Ji-won considered lying, then decided against it. "Bad, maybe 7 out of 10. But I've had worse." 7 out of 10 with such severe injuries? Oma sounded shocked. "This is remarkable. Most species would be unconscious from shock. How are you managing this?" "Training, practice, and knowing that if I pass out I might not wake up." There was a pause. "Your determination is impressive. We will do everything we can to help you. I promise." The sincerity in her voice was clear even through the translator. Ji-won felt a small measure of comfort. At least someone at Aurora Point seemed to care, but caring wasn't the same as being able to help. More time passed. Ji-won kept reviewing the medical files. He also pulled up engineering manuals. If he needed to use ship's tools for surgery, He had to understand exactly what they could do. The cutting torch could make precise incisions if set to low power. The hull sealant could close wounds if applied correctly. The bonding agent used for pipe repairs might work on torn tissue. It was insane. It would probably kill him. But it was a plan, and having a plan made him feel more in control. 12 hours to Aurora Point, Minji announced. How are you holding up? Still here, Ji-won said. That was about all he could claim. The captain studied him for a long moment. You're planning something. I can see it in your eyes. Just thinking about options, Ji-won said carefully. What kind of options? Backup plans, in case the aliens can't help. Minji's expression darkened. Don't do anything stupid. Stupid would be lying here waiting to die, Ji-won said. I'm just being prepared. They stared at each other. Finally, Minji nodded. Fine, be prepared. But give the doctors at Aurora Point a chance first. Understood? Understood. But as the captain left the medical bay, Ji-won couldn't help wondering if giving them a chance meant giving himself none. Time was running out. His body was failing. And somewhere ahead at a medical station he'd never seen, alien doctors were preparing to save a human they didn't understand. The math was simple. Either they figured out how to treat him, or he would have to treat himself. There was no third option. Daehyun noticed Ji-won's distant expression. Hey, stay with me. Don't go somewhere else in your head. I'm here, Ji-won said. Just tired. Sleep if you need to. I'll watch the monitors. But Ji-won didn't sleep. He couldn't afford to. Instead, he kept reading. Kept planning. Kept preparing for what might be the hardest thing he'd ever have to do. Outside the ship, space stretched endlessly in all directions. Cold, dark, uncaring. The constellation was just a tiny spark of life racing through the void. And inside that spark, a human engineer lay dying, refusing to accept his fate. Because that's what humans did. They fought. They adapted. They survived, even when survival seemed impossible. They moved Ji-won to a smaller room. Healer Oma worked quickly, setting up equipment. She brought surgical tools, sterile cloths, and bottles of clear liquid. The alien instruments looked strange, but Ji-won recognized their purposes. Scalpels, clamps, suturing devices. A holographic display flickered to life beside the surgical table. Oma connected it to the constellation's database. Ji-won's engineering manuals appeared floating in the air. He pulled up the files he needed. Medical protocols, anatomical diagrams, and yes, even the maintenance manual for the ship's biological waste system. It contained surprisingly relevant information about organic tissue repair. Dr. Vecklith stood in the corner, his plates clicking nervously. Drax remained near the door, arms crossed. Both watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. Captain Minji and Daehyun stood behind a transparent barrier. Minji's face was stone. Daehyun looked like he might be sick. The anesthetic is ready, Oma said. It will block most of the pain. But not all. Your nervous system is too different from species I am familiar with. I cannot guarantee how effective it will be. It'll be enough, Ji-won said. He hoped that was true. Oma injected the anesthetic around his abdomen. Cool numbness spread through his skin and into the muscle beneath. But Ji-won could still feel pressure, still feel his heartbeat. The drug took the edge off, but this was going to hurt. He positioned himself carefully on the table, propped up so he could see his own stomach. His hands were steady. That surprised him. He'd expected them to shake. Last chance to let us try, Dr. Vecklith said. You had your chance, Ji-won replied. He picked up the scalpel. The blade touched his skin. He took a breath. Then he cut. The anesthetic helped, but not enough. Pain bloomed along the incision line. Not the sharp pain of a cut, but a deep wrong feeling. The sensation of opening yourself up. Ji-won's mind screamed at him to stop. Every instinct told him this was insane. He ignored the instincts and kept cutting. Blood welled up. He grabbed a clamp with his other hand, controlling the bleeding. His hands moved automatically, following procedures he'd learned years ago in military training. Open the wound. Identify the damage. Address the most critical issues first. This is impossible, Drax muttered. He should be in shock. Ji-won heard him but didn't respond. He was too busy working. The holographic display showed him diagrams of human anatomy. He compared them to what he saw inside himself. There, the spleen, ruptured and bleeding. He talked as he worked, partly to keep his mind focused, partly because the aliens needed to understand. Humans evolved on a dangerous planet. We learned to push through pain. Our bodies can handle trauma that would kill other species. His fingers found the damaged organ. He used a cauterizing tool to seal the worst of the bleeding. The smell of burning tissue filled the air. Jiwon's stomach turned, but he kept working. Healer Oma moved closer. "What can I do to help?" "Talk to me," Jiwon said. "Keep me focused. If I pass out, this is over." Oma's skin glowed with patterns of light. "Tell me about your training. How did you learn to do this?" "Combat medic school," Jiwon said, working carefully around a blood vessel. 6 months of training, then 3 years in active service. I treated injuries in the field. Sometimes we didn't have proper equipment. Sometimes we had to improvise. But you never operated on yourself. No, that's new. He managed a weak laugh. Always a first time for everything. The spleen was too damaged to save. Jiwon used the cauterizing tool to remove it entirely. Humans could live without a spleen. It would make him more vulnerable to infections, but that was a problem for later. Right now, he needed to stop the bleeding. Time passed. Jiwon didn't know how much. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. His world narrowed to the work. Cut, clamp, seal, check the manual, follow the procedure. He found the damaged intestine. This was worse than he'd thought. A section of about 10 centimeters was torn. He needed to remove the damaged part and reconnect the healthy tissue. His hands shook. Not from fear, from exhaustion. His body was running on fumes. "I don't know if I can do this part," he admitted. Oma's voice was soft but firm. "You have already done the impossible. You can finish this." "How do you know?" "Because I have never seen such determination in any species. You refuse to give up. This makes you extraordinary." Jiwon looked at the damaged intestine, then at the engineering manual floating beside him. There was a section on repairing flexible pressure conduits. The principles were similar. Cut out the damaged section, connect the healthy ends, seal the joint. He picked up the scalpel again. The next 20 minutes were the hardest of his life. Every movement required concentration. His vision kept blurring. The pain was constant now, breaking through the anesthetic. But he kept working. Cut, connect, seal. Behind the barrier, Daehyun had turned away, unable to watch. Captain Minji stood motionless, her hands clenched into fists. Dr. Vecklith and Drax had moved closer, their earlier skepticism replaced by stunned silence. Finally, the intestine was repaired. Not pretty, not perfect, but functional. The bleeding had stopped. The immediate danger was past. Now he just had to close himself up. Jiwon used the alien suturing device. It wasn't designed for human tissue, but he made it work. Stitch by stitch, he closed the incision. His hands moved on autopilot. His mind was somewhere else, floating. Distant. "Stay awake," Oma said. "Just a little longer." "Almost done," Jiwon mumbled. The last stitch. Then a layer of bioadhesive over the wound. Then he was finished. He dropped the tools. His hands were covered in his own blood. The surgical area looked like a war zone, but the monitors around him showed something incredible. His blood pressure was rising. His heart rate was stabilizing. He'd done it. Jiwon collapsed back on the table. His body felt like it weighed 1,000 kilograms. Exhaustion crashed over him in waves. Dr. Vecklith approached slowly. His translator was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something that might have been respect. "This should not have been possible. By all medical logic, you should be dead, or at minimum unconscious from shock." "Human logic is different," Jiwon said. His voice was barely a whisper. Drax stepped forward. For once, his arrogance was gone. The technique was crude, primitive, but effective. "I have never seen anything like this." Healer Oma covered Jiwon with a thermal blanket. Her skin glowed with colors that looked like joy and wonder. "You are remarkable. Your entire species must be remarkable." "Not remarkable," Jiwon said. "Just stubborn." Captain Minji entered the room. She stood beside the table, looking down at her engineer. Her expression was unreadable. Then finally she smiled. "Good work." "Thanks, Captain." Daehyun appeared at his other side. His friend's eyes were wet. "You're insane." "You know that, right?" "Probably," Jiwon agreed. "But I'm alive, and that was all that mattered." He'd cut himself open, repaired his own organs, and closed himself back up. He'd done the impossible because the alternative was death, and humans didn't accept death quietly. As consciousness finally slipped away, Ji-won's last thought was simple. He'd survived. Against all odds, against all logic, he'd survived, because that's what humans did. Aurora Point appeared ahead like a silver wheel spinning in space. The medical station orbited a massive gas giant, its lights bright against the planet's swirling clouds. Under different circumstances, Ji-won might have found it beautiful. Right now, it just looked far away. The constellation docked with a heavy clang. Within seconds, the airlock opened. Alien medical staff rushed in with a floating stretcher. Ji-won got his first look at beings from other worlds. Dr. Veclith towered over everyone, his body covered in hard plates that looked like dark glass. Multiple eyes studied Ji-won with an intensity that was somehow clinical and cold at the same time. When he spoke, his mouth parts clicked and chittered. The translator turned it into flat words. Transfer the patient to the stretcher. Carefully. Human skeletal structure is fragile. Healer Oma moved forward. Her skin was translucent and blue, showing the glow of organs underneath. Patterns of light rippled across her body in waves. She touched Ji-won's arm gently and her skin felt cool and damp. "I am Oma," she said. "We spoke earlier. I will help you." Ji-won managed a nod. The movement made his vision blur. They lifted him onto the stretcher. The station's gravity felt wrong, slightly heavier than what he was used to. Or maybe that was just his body failing. Everything felt wrong now. The medical bay looked nothing like human hospitals. The equipment was strange shapes and colors. Lights that hurt his eyes, smells that made his stomach turn. The air tasted of chemicals he couldn't identify. They placed him on a table that molded itself to his body. Sensors extended from the walls, scanning him with beams of light. The alien medical equipment hummed and clicked and chirped. A third alien entered the room. This one was reptilian, covered in scales that shifted between green and bronze. He had 4 arms, each ending in delicate fingers. His eyes were cold and calculating. "This is the human?" the reptilian asked. He didn't sound impressed. "Yes," Dr. Veclith said. "This is Surgeon Drax. He specializes in trauma cases." Drax moved closer, studying Ji-won like a broken machine. Warm-blooded, inefficient. The injuries are extensive. He tapped something on a console. The scans show a ruptured spleen and damaged intestine. Significant blood loss. "Yes," Dr. Veclith agreed. "We must begin treatment immediately. I recommend our cellular regeneration protocol. It has proven effective across multiple species." "Regeneration takes too long," Drax said, his voice sharp. 72 hours minimum. The human will die before then. We need surgical intervention. My nanosurgery can repair the damage at the molecular level. Your nanomachines are designed for cold-blooded organisms, Dr. Veclith countered. Introducing them into a warm-blooded system could trigger immune rejection. Then we modify the programming. It's simple. Nothing about this patient is simple. Ji-won listened to them argue. Their voices rose, translators struggling to keep up. He realized with growing horror that they didn't agree. They didn't know what to do. And while they debated, he was dying. Healer Oma touched Dr. Veclith's arm. "Perhaps we could combine approaches? Use elements of both treatments?" "Impossible," Drax said. "Mixing methodologies would create unpredictable results." "Your way might kill him faster," Dr. Veclith said. His plates clicked with agitation. "Your way will definitely kill him. Just slowly." Captain Minji stepped forward, her face hard. "He doesn't have time for this. Pick a treatment and start it." "It's not that simple," Dr. Veclith said. "The wrong treatment could accelerate his death. Doing nothing will definitely kill him," Daehyun said, his voice cracking with desperation. The aliens continued arguing. Medical terms flew back and forth, most of which the translators couldn't properly convert. Ji-won caught phrases about cell compatibility, immune responses, molecular structures. None of it mattered. What mattered was that they couldn't agree. His body was failing. He could feel it happening. The cold was spreading from his fingers and toes, creeping inward. His heart worked harder and harder, trying to pump blood that wasn't there anymore. The medical displays around him showed his vital signs dropping. He was going to die. On this table, while aliens with all their advanced technology stood around and argued about the best way to save him. No, that wasn't acceptable. Ji-won's hand moved. It took all his strength to lift it. His fingers found the control panel beside the medical table. The interface was alien, but it had simple controls. He pressed buttons until the table began to tilt, raising him to a sitting position. The alien stopped arguing and turned to look at him. "What are you doing?" Dr. Vecklith asked. Jiwan took a breath. Speaking hurt. Everything hurt. But he needed to say this clearly. "You can't agree on how to treat me." "We are discussing the optimal approach," Dr. Vecklith said. "I'm dying while you discuss," Jiwan said. "I can feel it happening. So here's what I need. Local anesthetic. Surgical tools. Access to my ship's database." Silence filled the room. "I don't understand," Dr. Vecklith said finally. "I'm going to fix myself," Jiwan said. Each word was an effort. "If you can't agree on how to save me, I'll do it myself." Dr. Vecklith's translator made a sound that might have been shocked chittering. "That is impossible. You cannot perform surgery on yourself. The pain alone would cause fatal shock." "I've had worse pain," Jiwan lied. He hadn't, but they didn't need to know that. Drax's scales shifted to a darker color. "This is absurd. Even if you survive the pain, you lack the skill and equipment." "I was a combat medic," Jiwan said. "I've done field surgery. And I'm an engineer. I can adapt tools." "You will kill yourself," Dr. Vecklith said flatly. "Maybe," Jiwan admitted. "But I'll definitely die if we keep waiting." "So what do I have to lose?" Healer Oma moved closer. Her skin patterns shifted to colors Jiwan couldn't interpret. "You would truly do this? Cut into your own body?" "If I have to." "Why?" she asked softly. Jiwan met her eyes. "Because I'm not going to lie here and die. If there's a chance, even a small one, I'm taking it." "That's what humans do," Captain Minji spoke up. "His body, his choice. Either help him or get out of the way." Dr. Vecklith and Drax looked at each other. Their argument had been about pride, about whose medical philosophy was superior. Now they faced something unexpected. A patient who refused to wait for them to decide his fate. "This violates every medical protocol," Dr. Vecklith said. "So does letting me die," Jiwan said. Healer Oma made a decision. "I will help him. Prepare a surgical area. Get him the strongest local anesthetic we have, and connect him to his database." "This is madness," Drax said. But he didn't leave. None of them did. They all stayed watching as the human patient prepared to do the impossible. Jiwan laid back down, conserving his strength. He would need every bit of it for what came next. His hands were shaking. His body was failing. But his mind was clear. He was going to cut himself open and repair his own organs. It was insane. It would probably kill him, but at least he would die trying. 3 days later, Jiwan woke up in a recovery room. Soft lights, quiet sounds. The air smelled clean, though still strange to his human nose. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then memory returned. The surgery. His surgery. On himself. He looked down at his stomach. Clean bandages covered the incision. No blood, no pain. Well, less pain. Everything felt sore and stiff, but not the screaming agony he remembered. Healer Oma sat in a chair beside his bed. Her translucent skin glowed with soft blue patterns. When she noticed him awake, the pattern shifted to brighter colors. "You are awake. This is good. Your recovery has been remarkable." "How long was I out?" Jiwan's voice came out rough. 72 hours. "We kept you sedated while your body began healing. The speed of your recovery is astonishing. What should take weeks is happening in days." "Humans heal fast," Jiwan said. "It's one of our things." Oma's patterns shifted again. If Jiwan had to guess, he'd say she was fascinated. "Your immune system is treating the engineering materials you used as temporary scaffolding. Your body is building new tissue around them. In a few weeks, most of those materials will be absorbed or replaced by natural tissue. This level of adaptability is extraordinary." The door opened. Dr. Vecklith entered, his hard plates gleaming under the lights. He approached the bed with something that might have been curiosity. "You continue to defy medical expectations," he said. "I have been studying your case. I must ask questions if you're able to answer." "Go ahead," Jiwan said. "How did you maintain consciousness through the surgery? The pain should have induced immediate shock." Jiwan thought about it. "Training helps, but mostly I think humans are just built to endure. Our ancestors survived by pushing through pain, getting injured and then running away from predators, fighting through illness and hunger. Pain is just information. It tells you something is wrong, but it doesn't have to stop you." Dr. Vecklith's plates clicked. "Most species evolve to avoid pain, to stop when injured and wait for healing. Your species evolved to continue despite injury. Earth was dangerous, G1 said. Stopping meant dying. So we learned to keep moving. Surgeon Drax entered next. He stood at the foot of the bed studying G1 with his cold reptilian eyes. I reviewed the recording of your procedure. The technique was crude, but the logic was sound. You adapted engineering principles to biological repair. Creative, effective. Coming from Drax, that was high praise. G1 nodded acknowledgement. Your case has generated significant interest, Dr. Vecklith said. Multiple medical facilities have requested access to the recordings and data. They wish to understand human capabilities better. Why? G1 asked. Because you demonstrated something we thought impossible, Oma said softly. Self-surgery. Conscious operation through catastrophic pain. Rapid healing of crude repairs. These things challenge our understanding of biology. The door opened again. Captain Minji and Daehyun entered. Daehyun rushed to the bedside, relief clear on his face. You look better than expected, Minji said. Feeling better too, G1 said. Still sore, but alive. We've been cleared to leave in 2 days, Minji said. If you're strong enough to travel, I'll be ready. Dr. Vecklith approached the captain. Before you depart, I have a request. Aurora Point wishes to develop proper medical protocols for treating humans. We need human input. Would Jiwan be willing to consult with us? Jiwan answered before Minji could. On one condition. The protocols have to respect human agency. If a human patient is conscious and capable, they should have a say in their treatment. Even if it seems unusual to you, Dr. Vecklith considered this. His plates clicked thoughtfully. This is contrary to standard medical practice. But given what we witnessed, I believe it is necessary. We accept your terms. Then I'll help however I can, Ji-won said. The alien doctors left. Only the crew remained. Daehyun sat down heavily in the chair Oma had vacated. I thought you were going to die, he said quietly. When you started cutting into yourself, I thought that was it. I thought so too, Ji-won admitted. But I had to try. Why? Daehyun asked. Why not wait? Maybe they would have figured something out. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Because waiting meant giving up control, letting someone else decide if I lived or died. I couldn't do that. I had to at least try to save myself. Captain Minji nodded. That's very human of you. Is it? Ji-won asked. Yes, Minji said firmly. We're problem solvers. We adapt, we refuse to accept defeat. That's what makes us human. That's what will keep us alive out here in space. 2 days later, Ji-won stood in the docking bay. His movements were careful, his stomach still tender. But he could walk. He could function. The alien doctors had provided him with medication and detailed instructions for his continued recovery. Healer Oma came to see him off. She held out a small data chip. What's this? Ji-won asked. Everything about your case. Medical scans. Surgery recordings. My observations about human physiology. I thought other humans should know what you accomplished. What your species is capable of. Ji-won took the chip carefully. Thank you. Oma's skin glowed with warm colors. No, thank you. You taught us something important. That there are different ways to approach medicine. Different types of strength. We will not forget. The constellation departed Aurora Point slowly. Ji-won stood in the observation deck watching the station shrink into the distance. Behind him, the gas giant filled half the sky with swirling colors. Daehyun joined him at the window. How are you feeling? Sore, tired, but good. Good enough to get back to work? Ji-won smiled. Give me a week. Then I'll be ready. They stood in comfortable silence watching space scroll past. Finally, Daehyun asked the question that had been bothering him since the surgery. Were you scared? When you started cutting? Ji-won considered lying, then decided his friend deserved the truth. Terrified. Every second of it. Then how did you do it? Because being scared doesn't mean you can't act. Fear is just another problem to work around. Like pain, like death. They're all just obstacles. And humans are very good at overcoming obstacles. Daehyun shook his head in wonder. The aliens think we're crazy. Maybe we are, Ji-won said. But we're alive. That's what matters. Back in his quarters that night, Ji-won lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. His stomach ached. His body felt weak. But he was healing. Getting stronger every day. He thought about what Healer Oma had said. That he'd taught them something. But they'd taught him something too. That humans were different. Not better. Just different. They had survived Earth by being stubborn, adaptable and willing to endure. Those same traits would help them survive in space. The galaxy was full of species with better technology, longer lifespans, greater knowledge, but none of them had what humans had. That spark of determination, that refusal to quit. Ji-won closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would rest. The day after, he would start physical therapy. In a week, he'd be back to light duty. In a month, fully recovered, he'd cut himself open with a knife and an instruction manual. He'd done the impossible, and he'd survived, because that's what humans did. They survived. Part 1. Ji-won floated in the darkness of space. All around him, stars burned cold and distant. His magnetic boots kept him stuck to the side of the constellation, the cargo ship that had been his home for 3 years. The metal hull stretched out below him like a gray plane. Above him, nothing but the endless void. He twisted a bolt with his wrench, checking the thruster mount for the 3rd time. Everything looked good. The old part was worn out, ready to fail. The new part gleamed silver in the light from his helmet lamp. This was routine work. Boring, even. That's what made it dangerous. Boredom made people careless. How's it looking out there? Daehyun's voice crackled in his helmet speaker. Ji-won smiled. His friend always checked on him during spacewalks. Same as 5 minutes ago, metal, bolts, darkness, the usual. You've been out there 40 minutes. Don't fall asleep. Can't, the view's too exciting. Ji-won tightened the last bolt and checked his oxygen gauge. 20 minutes left. Plenty of time to finish up and get back inside. He reached for the diagnostic tool on his belt. That's when it happened. He didn't see it coming. Nobody could have. The piece of rock was smaller than a grain of rice, moving faster than a bullet. Much faster. It had been drifting through space for millions of years, and in one random moment its path crossed with Ji-won's. The impact felt like being punched by a sledgehammer. Pain exploded in his lower stomach. His vision went white, then red, then spotty. The wrench flew from his hand, spinning away into space. Warning lights flashed inside his helmet. Red everywhere. His suit's computer screamed alerts in his ear. Breach detected. Pressure loss. Internal injury. Medical emergency. The suit's emergency system kicked in. Foam sprayed from hidden nozzles, sealing the tiny hole in his suit. But Ji-won knew the foam couldn't fix what was wrong inside his body. He could feel it. Something was torn. Something was bleeding. Ji-won, your vitals just spiked. What's happening? Daehyun's voice was sharp now, worried. Ji-won tried to answer but only managed to groan. He forced his hand to move, slapping the emergency recall button on his chest. The tether cable began pulling him back toward the airlock. Every movement sent waves of agony through his body. Ji-won, talk to me! Daehyun was shouting now. Hit, Ji-won managed to say. Something hit me. Hold on. We're getting you inside. Hold on. The cable pulled him across the hull. Normally, Ji-won would help by pushing off with his boots. Now he just hung there, fighting to stay conscious. The pain was incredible. He'd been hurt before, back in his military days. This was worse. This felt like dying. The airlock door appeared ahead of him. Daehyun stood inside, already in his emergency suit, reaching out. His friend's face was pale behind his helmet visor. Got you, Daehyun said, grabbing Ji-won's arm. He pulled him through the door. The airlock began cycling immediately, pumping air back into the chamber. Ji-won's helmet display showed more bad news. Blood pressure dropping, heart rate too high, internal bleeding confirmed. He knew what that meant. He'd seen it happen to other people. Without surgery, he would die. Maybe in hours, maybe in minutes. The inner door opened. Captain Minji stood there with the medical kit. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. She'd seen crew members die before. She wouldn't let it happen again if she could help it. Get his helmet off, she ordered. Carefully, they pulled off his helmet. Ji-won gasped, sucking in the ship's recycled air. It tasted like metal and oil. It was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Where are you hit? Minji asked. Lower abdomen. Left side. Ji-won touched the spot gently. Even that light touch made him want to scream. They carried him to the medical bay. It was a small room, barely bigger than a closet. The Constellation wasn't a hospital ship. It had basic supplies, bandages, painkillers, a diagnostic bed that could tell you what was wrong but couldn't fix it. They laid him on the bed. The scanner hummed to life, its sensors moving over his body. Ji-won watched the screen, reading the medical data. He'd been a combat medic once before he became an engineer. He knew how to read these scans. What he saw made his stomach turn. Ruptured spleen, lacerated intestine, severe internal bleeding. These weren't injuries you could fix with bandages. These needed surgery. Real surgery and a real hospital. How bad? Taehyun asked. Bad, Ji-won said quietly. Captain Minji was already at the communication panel. Aurora Point, this is the Constellation. We have a medical emergency. Human crew member, critical internal injuries. We need immediate assistance, the response came quickly. Aurora Point was the nearest medical station, a place where alien doctors treated patients from dozens of different species. Constellation, we copy. Transmit patient data. How far are you from our location? Minji checked the navigation console. 16 hours at maximum burn. There was a pause. 16 hours, understood. Begin transit immediately. Transmitting stabilization procedures now. The ship's engines roared to life. Ji-won felt the acceleration pressing him into the medical bed. 16 hours. Could he last that long? The medical computer began pumping synthetic blood into his veins. It also gave him coagulants to slow the bleeding. But these were just temporary fixes. Band-aids on a bullet wound. His body was still tearing itself apart inside. Stay awake, Daehyun said, gripping his hand. Keep talking to me, Ji-won tried. He really did. But the pain was so intense, it felt like his insides were on fire. The medical computer increased the pain medication. The world began to blur at the edges. Don't you dare die, Minji said. Her voice was steel. That's an order. Ji-won managed a weak smile. Yes, Captain. But as the ship raced through space toward Aurora Point, Ji-won couldn't shake one thought. 16 hours felt like forever. And forever might be too long. He closed his eyes, not to sleep but to think. His military training kicked in. Assess the situation. Identify the problems. Find solutions. He was bleeding internally. The ship couldn't fix that. The alien station might not be able to either. Humans were rare out here. Alien doctors didn't have much experience with human bodies, which meant he might need a backup plan. Ji-won opened his eyes and looked at the ceiling. His data chip, implanted in his brain, contained thousands of files. Technical manuals, engineering diagrams, and yes, medical protocols from his combat medic days, field surgery techniques, emergency procedures. He started reviewing those files, just in case. Because if there was one thing Ji-won had learned in his 34 years of life, it was this. You couldn't always count on someone else to save you. Sometimes you had to save yourself, even if it meant doing the impossible.